Have you ever met someone who triggered something in you you couldn't explain? Maybe they weren't cruel. Maybe they didn't say anything overtly offensive. But something about them brought a shadow to the surface. Not their shadow, yours. And suddenly, you weren't reacting to them. You were reacting to you. The parts of you you thought you had buried, forgotten, outsmarted. But here's the truth Jung tried to warn us about. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. It will direct your life, and you will call it fate. People talk a lot about light, about healing, about peace, but rarely do they talk about the darkness that lives in all of us. Not just the violence, not just the rage, but the envy, the bitterness, the control, the manipulation, the addiction to power, the thirst to win, even if someone else must lose. You can ignore it, you can deny it, but that won't make it go away. And the longer you avoid your darkness, the more likely it is you'll attack it in someone else. We live in a world of projections, people pointing fingers, canceling, moralizing. But here's the twisted truth. Most people aren't reacting to others. They're reacting to their own reflections, mirrored back by the people they claim to hate. It's not the villain outside that terrifies them. It's the villain within. This is why Jung believed that the greatest work you can do isn't to fix the world. It's to face your shadow, to confront the parts of you that you'd rather disown. Because only then can you understand someone else's. Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people. Why? Because it gives you a radical kind of compassion. Not the fake kind. Not the kind that sugarcoats everything and pretends everyone's a misunderstood angel. But the kind that sees the chaos in someone else and recognizes the same chaos within you. Here's the paradox. You don't truly become a good person by pretending to be one. You become a good person by realizing how easily you could become bad and choosing otherwise. Every monster you see on the news, you could have been them if your pain had taken a different turn. That's not weakness. That's not self-hate. That's radical humility. And the world is dying for more of it. Let's go deeper. People think they know themselves because they know their hobbies, their likes, their taste in movies, their favorite color. That's not knowing yourself. That's branding. Real self-knowledge comes from staring directly at your guilt, your shame, your insecurities, your manipulations, without running. It's asking, why do I always need to be right? Why do I crave validation? Why do I get angry when someone else wins? And then not justifying it, but understanding it, tracing it, holding it, owning it. Carl Jung didn't want you to become perfect. He wanted you to become whole, and wholeness includes the parts that don't look good on Instagram. Let's talk about relationships, because nowhere is this dynamic more obvious than in how we relate to others. Ever notice how the thing that irritates you most in others is often a suppressed part of yourself? That person who talks too much might reflect your own fear of being overlooked. That arrogant coworker might awaken your own unspoken hunger for recognition. We hate in others what we're afraid to admit in ourselves. And this is where projection becomes dangerous. Because if you haven't faced your inner chaos, you'll try to destroy it in the people around you. You'll lash out, judge, condemn, not because they deserve it, but because they activated your shadow. And instead of asking, what does this say about me? Most people ask, how can I make them stop? This is why the world is so noisy. It's a collective scream of people refusing to look within. But you're here because you sense something deeper. You know the monster isn't just out there. It's in here, beneath the surface. And that's the real battlefield. Here's the thing. You can't truly forgive someone else's darkness until you've come to peace with your own. You can't help someone through their chaos if you're still in denial about your own. You can't lead with real strength until you've faced your own weakness and survived it. Let's pause. Ask yourself, what part of me have I rejected? What emotion do I judge in others but secretly fear in myself? When did I learn that being human was unacceptable? Because that is the doorway to your shadow. And once you walk through it, you won't be the same. Here's what happens when you start to know your darkness. You become less reactive because you recognize what's yours and what's not. You become less judgmental because you've seen the ugliness in yourself and made peace with it. You become more powerful, not because you pretend to be perfect, but because you've stopped running from your imperfection. You become a mirror, but not one that condemns. One that reflects people back to themselves with kindness and clarity. This is the path of the real philosopher, not the one with quotes and theories, but the one who lives the questions. Jung didn't sugarcoat the work. He said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. But if you're brave enough to do it, to stare into your own abyss, you gain something no one can take from you: inner integrity. Not perfection, not purity, but the unshakable strength of a person who has nothing to hide. Let's talk about society for a moment. We are taught to curate ourselves, to hide our anger, our jealousy, our shame, to be likable, clean, safe. But that's a recipe for psychological disaster, because what gets repressed doesn't disappear. It festers. It leaks out in passive aggression, in anxiety, in addiction, in the inability to hold space for anyone else's struggle. And that is why people become so dangerous, not because they're evil, but because they're unaware. You don't become dangerous by having darkness. You become dangerous by ignoring it. And when you do the opposite, when you begin to embrace your full humanity, you become something rare, someone who can be trusted, not because you're perfect, but because you're honest. Imagine a world where people didn't run from their shadow, but faced it, befriended it, listened to it. Not to be ruled by it, but to learn from it. Because your darkness holds wisdom. It's the part of you that says, you've been hurt, you've been overlooked, you've wanted power because you felt powerless. If you listen, you'll find that your shadow doesn't want to destroy you. It wants to be understood. So now let's bring it back to you. Next time someone triggers you, ask, what are they awakening in me? Next time you feel rage, envy, control rising, don't suppress it. Observe it. Ask it what it's protecting, and then thank it. Not for ruling your life, but for showing you what still needs healing. Because here's the truth. Every time you embrace your own darkness, you become more capable of handling someone else's. Every time you resist the urge to judge, you expand your capacity for compassion. And every time you stop projecting, you reclaim your power. The world needs deep thinkers, not ones who pretend to be saints, but ones who have walked through hell and come back with understanding. If that's you, keep going. Your darkness is not your downfall. It's your teacher. And when you learn to listen, not only will you transform yourself, you'll become the kind of person who can sit with someone else's pain without trying to fix it, without running from it, without making it about you. You'll be the one who can say, I've been there. I understand. You're not alone. And in a world starving for connection, that might be the most powerful thing you could ever offer. So, if this message resonated, if you felt your own shadow rise and fall, if you felt misunderstood, misjudged, mislabeled, then share this video with someone who needs to know. They're not broken. They're just becoming whole. And don't forget to subscribe, because this channel isn't for the faint of heart. It's for those who dare to see the dark and still choose the light, not out of ignorance, but because they've walked through the fire and come out with truth. You don't need to fear your darkness. You need to know it, because only then can you truly walk beside others in theirs. This is the beginning of real power and real peace.